Welcome to the Downtime from WTWH Media with your hosts, Sarah Wynn and Sheri Kasperzak, bringing you everything you need to know from the week in manufacturing.
Hey guys, Sarah Wynn here. We're back with another episode of the Downtime.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Sheri Kasperzak. Thank you so much for spending your downtime with us. And we are back with episode 3, and we have a great show ahead of us. So stay tuned.
Yes, we got a lot on deck. Sheri was just at the Robotics Summit this week. We're going to talk about that. We have another interview with Eugene from the Robot Report. We also are diving into the Packaging OEM Energy Efficiency ebook. We talk about how materials are not the only sustainable part of packaging. Sheri, you have an interview as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to talk about machines as a service and how that industry, which entails not just renting equipment for automation, but also the service and data related to it. It's sort of a full service, one-stop shop way to automate your manufacturing. So I had a great conversation with Saman Farid. He is the CEO of a company called Formic. And they're a surprising winner in the sort of tariff uncertainty that we're living in right now. So stay tuned for that. That's a great interview and really a kind of service that I didn't know existed until we had that conversation. So I'm really excited with how that interview turned out. So you want to stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely, Sheri. So let's just kick it off. The elephant in the room, the robot in the room.
The big robot in the room. We had the best time at the Robotics Summit and Expo 2025. That was in Boston. I just came back from the Robotics Summit yesterday. Came back with a ton of content. We have videos. We have some keynote speeches. We have photos. So I'm putting together galleries now from all of the photos that I got while I was there yesterday. That's going to be live at Plant Engineering and Control Engineering, and we will drop those links in our show description. It'll also be up at our LinkedIn page, The Downtime. Go follow us on LinkedIn, and while you're at it, go follow us on SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube so you don't miss a single episode.
And Instagram as well, at @Downtime. It's a brand new account. We're working on populating it. It'll have the best content.
And from the Robotics Summit, I'm going to post a lot of content from that. We're going to have reels. We're going to have photos. Go check out the Downtime on Instagram. It is about to be popping. So back to the Robotics Summit, we had a fantastic interview with Eugene Demaitre, who is the Editorial Director for our robotics group here at WTWH Media. Gene had a lot of great feedback on the summit. He had a lot of great insights into how it went. I know that he's exhausted, but he was kind enough to chat with us today. We know it's his Super Bowl, and we know he's exhausted, but he was super kind to join us for an interview. And why don't you check out what he had to say? All right. We have with us today Eugene Demaitre. He is the Editorial Director of the Robotics Group here at WTWH Media. And Gene, you just wrapped up your latest and greatest Robotics Summit and Expo in Boston yesterday. So tell us how you're feeling. Tell us all about it. This was your Super Bowl. How are you feeling?
I'm tired, but I'm still on that adrenaline high. I gotta admit that, for me, there's nothing better than being surrounded by really smart people and robots, of course. And so, for us, it was, we've been preparing for this for quite a while, as you can imagine, and to finally have that payoff of, uh, you know, getting to the goalposts and to continue the metaphor, it was really great. I'm thrilled and excited. I hope everyone who was there had a great time or as great a time as we did. And we're always amazed, we work so hard on it, but you don't really know until you're there whether or not it will show up, whether or not everything will come together, and whether it's the speakers or attendees or exhibitors, it all worked out beautifully.
Absolutely. It was a great show. I was there yesterday. Lots of great, exhibitors and great speeches being given. It was a great energy. So yeah, congratulations. It seems like it was a great summit and expo. And yeah, can you kind of give us a little bit of a brief history of the Robotics Summit at Expo?
Yes, so Steve Crow and Dan Cara founded it about 6 years ago. and it's been growing every year. It's always been here in Boston, and the first time they did it, they had maybe close to 1,000 or 1,200 attendees. They did have to skip a year because of the pandemic, but it went virtual that year, and ever since then it's been growing. So last year we had about maybe 3,500 attendees total between the Robotics Summit and Device Talks. This year we had probably over 4,500 attendees total, which is, shows that the show is growing despite all the economic troubles that you might hear. We were very fortunate to have a fantastic turnout. We had 200 exhibitors, over 50 sessions, a lot of activities on the floor. I saw people following humanoid robots around. You got a chance to play pickleball. There was all kinds of fun things. So, and hopefully meaningful things too. A lot of business was being done at the show, a lot of it in the hallways. It's not just at the booths or at a session, but just, a lot of conversations that were going on throughout the event.
And so, Gene, we talked to you about 2 weeks ago before the event. We were previewing it when we did talk about the pickleball demonstration. How exactly did that come about? And it seemed to be very popular on social media. Was it as popular in person?
It was. I think on the first day, people were a little bit scared. They're a little reluctant. They hadn't seen something like this before. And they know what pickleball is, to be sure. But then once you have a few people who demonstrate it, there was a line for people to then, try it out. So, TenantBot is actually one of our RBR 50 award winners. And so that was part of how we got into contact with them. And again, we're always looking for good experiences on the show floor. And it worked out really nicely that we had a big space in the back there where people could play. And once in a while, the ball might bounce out of bounds and hit the poor exhibitors on the perimeter. I apologize for any of that, but it was a great way to see how a mobile robot, can not only retrieve the ball and then shoot it back at a player and actually play. It's not just retrieving them, scooping them up, being dumped out later. It's actually moving around in a more dynamic way. And we thought that was a fun demo to have.
Yeah, it looked awesome. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Gene. Did you try it out?
I wanted to. Unfortunately, like every time I was about to get in there, like either somebody saw me and wanted to talk, or I had another appointment. That's the one challenge I will say. Again, to continue with the sports metaphor, is like you think you're on the sidelines as a journalist, but no, I'm being called out into the field to interview people or meet with people or help moderate things. So unfortunately, I did not get to experience the full thing as an attendee would. But I hope that those who did will continue posting on social media about it.
Definitely. And while you may not have gotten to participate in the pickleball demo, it seems like you were the quarterback of the entire event. So we'll go with that.
I was more like the receiver. I always say Steve is the quarterback. He's definitely the one who throughout the year chases down all the speakers and we all work together as a team to come up with the strongest program that we can. I will say we had a lot of compliments on the strength of our opening lineup. Our keynotes were really great between Aaron Saunders from Boston Dynamics, James Kuffner, a longtime robotics veteran, who's now at Symbiotic, Aaron Parnes from Amazon, Danielle Russ at MIT CSAIL, and then it's funny, Brianna and I, after the closing keynote by Adil Akhtar from Psionic, he showed a bionic hand and how it is really becoming much more dexterous, and it was designed to be used with robots and people, and they actually had a live demo of someone who doesn't have a hand and was able to use a bionic hand. And I'm old enough to remember the $6 million man, and for me to shake someone's hand and have know that they're feeling my hand in theirs was really cool. But Rand and I were like, "I'm not crying, you're crying." And, when they showed the presentation of how it has really changed people's lives for the better, and to me, that's a great demonstration of how robotics can really help people. And so it was so cool to have those kinds of luminaries up on stage, really, bringing in not only our audience, but then informing people about AI and robotics in ways that they might not have had a chance to hear yet.
Yeah. And I like the analogy, the wide receiver, you were speeding all around the event. That makes sense.
Yeah, I was definitely getting some miles in.
There you go.
Awesome. So
But
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gene.
well, I was going to say, I can talk about some of the trends that we saw at this year's show.
Yeah.
There were some themes that emerged, um, maybe a little bit away from the sports metaphor for a moment, digging into the topics that we talked about. Uh, I mentioned AI in the keynotes, and what's interesting is that there's a real consensus forming that, okay, generative AI is here, but people are still learning how to use it. They're still trying to figure out what kinds of data to use with it, where to get that data. And um, so robots are intelligent thanks to existing models of artificial intelligence, but the newest ones that we've seen, it's not as simple as saying, oh, I'm going to take ChatGPT and slap it into a robot, right? It takes a little bit more effort than that. One of the sessions I moderated, we talked a lot about generative AI and VLA models and VLM models, and there's a complexity there that hopefully our audience has a better grasp of now. And then speaking of shaking hands with someone with a bionic hand, manipulation, right? That's another big area that we saw on the floor this year. A lot of grasping robots, robot hands, or robot grippers. Again, the new wave of AI and vision-based guidance is helping that be even more effective. But we're still a little ways off from humanoid robots. There were two or three humanoid robots on the floor, and they attracted a lot of attention, but most of them are not yet ready for prime time when it comes to commercial applications. And so that's certainly another big thing that emerged. And then, for robotics developers, just based on the 350 people who signed up for our career fair, that's robotics, there's obviously opportunities out there. So, for a lot of our audience, a lot of your audience, the people who are engineers, who are developing, designing, working on these systems, um, their prospects are actually pretty good. There's a bit of economic turmoil right now, and that was sort of the not so openly spoken about thing as much. Everyone's worried about tariffs, but they don't really know how it's going to play out. But in the meantime, if you're a young engineer, there's so many opportunities in robotics, and that was really uh, heartening for me when I meet all these really young people either at the career fair or on the show floor, and they're smarter than I will ever be. So it's always cool it gives me hope for the future.
Absolutely. So you kind of like hinted at some of the innovations in robotics. Let's dive a little deeper into that on the controls side. As I was coming through and seeing some of the guys on the controls side, seeing a lot of innovation in feedback control and sensors. What sort of things were you seeing as well on the control side of things?
So let's take sensors for a moment.
Sure.
On the sensory side, there's obviously force and torque sensing, which is used a lot, not just to control the robot, but also to get a sense of the mass or the weight of an object or inertia. There's a lot of elements there that you can build into the end effector, but you can also do it at the motor side as well, because there's all that data that's constantly being collected. Then there are haptics, right? The sense of touch. And that's really promising, as I said, with the bionic hand. But even in industrial applications, if you think of something like polishing or painting, where you want to have a certain amount of force, or imagine something like food handling, you're handling eggs or tomatoes. There's a great demonstration I saw of a tomato handling robot, and like you could tell based on the color that it was if something is right, but it also has to grasp it in a way and then twist it off the vine without damaging the fruit or vegetable. And so uh, that to me was really interesting because these are things that robots have not been able to do until very, very recently. It's been very, very challenging. And then on the control side, there's obviously new architectures emerging, both in terms of the code, but even in the hardware that you see more and more being on board, more and more processing at the edge. And I think that's really cool. And I'm sure you got to see as well as I did all the gearing and component providers on the show floor. I always call them the unsung heroes of robotics because nothing moves without them.
You've
And
got to have the
I
gears. Yeah, I
you
agree.
gotta
Yeah.
have the gears.
Yeah.
So, shout out to our friends at Harmonic Drive and Maxon and others because you really want that best-in-class solution in order for something to work smoothly, reliably, and for a long time. Because these are big systems, you don't want to have to replace the arms on your surgical robot on a regular basis, right? You want to make sure that it does that precision and repeatability over a long period of time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that overview. Looks like there's some great innovations across the board in robotics, automation, AI, the controls, sensors. It's all like just kind of evolving so quickly, and it's so great to see it in action.
Gene,
And
oh, go on, Gene.
I was going to say, speaking of motion control, right, for humanoids to advance or land robots more broadly becomes super important, right?
Mm.
That imagine balancing while carrying an object. We did see, Westwood Robotics had a humanoid that had a tray,
Yeah.
and like we weren't quite sure if it could handle a hot drink and hand it to an unsuspecting bystander, but it was actually still able to bow and to move things. It was dynamically stabilizing, which I think is cool. You push something and it wobbles, but it gets back onto firm footing. Unitary was there with a small robot greeting people as they came in. And then obviously for Lego robots, Limex had a bipedal robot. I don't know if you got to see that one. It looked a lot like the Star Wars robots
Yeah.
that
I
we
saw that
had
one. I think
from.
I got some video. So yeah, be sure to check out our LinkedIn. But I think I did get a video of that.
And then Boston Dynamics was there with Spot, which is a quadruped, but it has like a claw or arm on it, which again, you think about mobile manipulation, there's really a lot of potential there that we're just beginning to explore. But
Absolutely.
Sarah, I'm sorry I cut you off.
It's okay. I was just going to ask if any sustainability innovations were on display.
So in terms of sustainability, the two things that I would call out is that I saw a lot of battery innovation. So people trying to come up with smaller batteries that you could hot swap out uh, instead of having to plug in for a long time, right? So that makes those mobile robots more useful, and it also makes it easier for the operator to just keep it going. The other thing is that there are a number of things around the environment, whether it's taking care of wind turbines. One of the things in the Mass Robotics Showcase was a robot that actually goes. So in New England, we love our lobsters, right? And those are captured in cages, but typically those cages are attached to buoys and lines. And those lines, unfortunately, can entangle things like whales, and you don't want that to happen. Obviously, it's very bad. So they actually had an aquatic system that would go down, pick it up, and use floats or balloons to lift it back to the surface without having those lines that are lying in wait, unsuspecting cetaceans. So that was really cool on a sustainability level, because again, there's so much innovation. I mean, that's one thing that people came to me and said about our show is that time again, no matter what the system is, they're like, oh, this is new, and that's really what we're very proud of getting.
Thank you, Gene, for sharing. I guess if I come to the area, I'll have to have a lobster.
Absolutely. If you like seafood, New England is the place to be.
Absolutely. Yep. Here in Rhode Island, it's more clams. That's our thing. But lobster's good too.
Wow, right? I mean, I love all seafood, so
Me too.
Me too.
uh, I can eat my way across New England.
Absolutely. That's the life goal.
I,
So yeah, go ahead.
I interviewed Chef Robotics, which is another RVR50, and so they have developed a robot that prepares pre-prepared meals. And so imagine if you're at the airport and you're in grab and go, who put that parfait together, or who put that salad together? Could be a robot, and that's great because it's fast, it's fresh, it's reliable, and they had actually pivoted over from serving front of house in restaurants where robots are still more of a novelty, to doing more large scale production. And I can tell you speaking of our sister sites, every FSR, QSR chain out there is actively interested in those kinds of machines.
Awesome, Gene. Thank you for sharing that. Gene, thanks so much for joining us today. So, what's on deck for robotics for the rest of the year for you?
Well, obviously we travel to other shows, on our own. So I'll automate in a couple of weeks, and I'm excited for that. But then the Robo Business event, which has actually been going on for over a dozen years, will
Mhm.
be in Santa Clara, California, October 15th and 16th. And it has a slightly different focus than the Robotics Summit. Robotics Summit is very much developer focused. We do have healthcare and warehouse tracks, but on the West Coast, we'll definitely have a focus on AI. We'll have probably a focus on humanoids because we'll want to talk about that, and a little bit more on some business side or business aspect of commercial robotics. And so I definitely hope to see everyone, especially our West Coast friends, at that event. And then I would be lying if I said we're not already planning for next year's Robotics Summit and Expo, which we're going to make even bigger and better. We're going to get more robots on the floor. That's always our challenge, our plan. We're hard at work thinking about the speakers that we get the top innovators, the top people who can explain things, and the top representatives of the global ecosystem. And that event will likely be late April, early May. I'm not sure exactly on the date, but I can say that thank you to everyone who made this year's event a success, and we're counting on everyone to make next year's even better. We'll post all that. So we are going to post, obviously give us a couple of weeks to catch up on the videos of all of the sessions from this year's, and we'll make sure those are available to attendees. But then we'll soon be putting out the call for speakers and presentations for next year, and the process begins anew.
That sounds great. Well, congratulations again on a fantastic Robotics Summit and Expo 2025. It was a great time, and here's hoping for an even bigger and better event next year. So we're really looking forward to it.
And Gene, robotics never stops. And can before we let you go, can you share with our listeners where they can find you and your podcast?
Absolutely. They can find our podcast at robotreport.com. And anywhere you get your podcasts, just look for the Robot Report podcast. And definitely continue to follow us on the Robot Report and at Automate Warehouse.
Awesome.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Gene. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gene.
Got it.
So great interview with Gene. Always love having him on the show. He's a
Absolutely.
delight to talk to. Sheri just got to meet him for the first time in person this week, and I'll get to meet him in a few weeks at Automate in Detroit. So I'm really excited. But back to the Robotics Summit, there were a lot of demonstrations on display. And when we talked to Gene most recently and before the event, he mentioned the pickleball demo. Did you get to see that?
I did. I did not participate because any sport that requires coordination is not my thing. But it was great to see it in action. I saw a lot of people, who are participating, and Tenabot was a lot of fun to look at. You can actually check out a picture and some video of Tenabot live at Plant Engineering and Control Engineering as well. So I'll have at least some photos. And go check out our Instagram page. There'll be a photo of Tenabot there as well.
Awesome. Any other demonstrations you saw you want to bring up, Sheri?
Yeah, there was the coffee robot. This was a setup from Ping, a company called Ping, that had, they have automated sort of coffee ordering. Like you can tell the robot what you're looking for, and the robot will produce your drink for you. And I don't know if you remember those old. You're probably too young to remember, Sarah. Those old vending machines that would you put in your money and it like gave you your coffee. It's kind of like
Yes.
it's more
I know what
complicated than
those
that
are.
because
Yes.
like your coffee order has gotten more complicated as time has gone on. This isn't just your, styrofoam cup of black coffee. You can put in whatever your order is, and the bot will make it for you and deliver it to you. So it was a really cool. I have some video of that as well, a photo of Ping's coffee robot. So check it out. But yeah, they had some really cool innovations. A lot of humanoids on the floor. There were a few that I engaged with. Boston Dynamics, of course, they have the coolest robots, and they had their robots on display there. A couple of other companies had some interesting robots as well. Unitree had a really cool humanoid, and SoftBank Robotics here in New England had one of their humanoid robots too, who was it's the Now robot, and so cute And I'm convinced, and you can check out my LinkedIn page, I'm convinced he was telling me to get to work because he started doing this. And I'm like, are you telling me I need to be typing all the content that I've gotten from the
Mhm.
Robotics Summit? I need to get to work. So
It sounds like a clear message. Clear message was sent.
I don't think it was definitely a clear message. He was sending a message. Get to it. Get to work, lady.
Okay, guys, moving into our next segment, we spoke this week to Stephanie Neal. She's the VP Editorial Director of the Automation and Controls Group at WTWH Media. We've mentioned it before, but she is also our boss, our supervisor, and she's awesome. She's excellent. We talked to her about the new Packaging OEM ebook. It's on energy efficiency in packaging machinery. Now, it's an interesting conversation because a lot of times when you think about sustainability in packaging, you instantly think of the materials when there are other components in play. So Stephanie dives into the ebook, explains all about it. You can read it at packagingoem.com/resources. And Sheri, do you have anything to add before we go into the interview?
No, I think Stephanie had a lot of great insights. I love that, she kept bringing up the fact that, OEMs now have a seat at the table when it comes to
Mhm.
sort of baking in that sustainability as, as they're building out the machinery. So I think she had a lot of great insights. I think the ebook is worth a download. Go check out what Stephanie had to say.
All right, welcome to the Downtime. We are here, Sheri and I, with Stephanie Neal. Stephanie is actually our supervisor. She's the VP Editorial Director for WTWH Media's Automation and Controls Group. Stephanie, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much,
So,
Stephanie.
Happy to be
Stephanie, could you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself to get started?
Sure. I'm the editorial director for the Automation and Controls Group at WTWH Media. I think you've already heard from Sheri and Sarah that we have a number of brands under this particular group, from control engineering, plant engineering, consulting specifying engineer, packaging OEM. So we cover, all this automation stuff that is really changing our world right now.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Mhm.
Sheri, do you have any questions to start? I have a few.
Yeah, so you wrote an ebook that just came out this past month. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that ebook and why everyone should go check it out?
Yeah. So this is for Packaging OEM, and we have a number of ebooks that have come out. Now, Packaging OEM, as our listeners may or may not know, is a pretty new brand. We launched it about a year ago, and it's really taken off since Sarah Wynn has come on board to help us. So thank you, Sarah. But we do a number of different things. One of it is to produce these ebooks, and the most recent one is on energy efficiency and packaging machinery. And the reason that we chose that is because we realized that this is an important trend. Obviously, in corporate manufacturing, sustainability is really important, but a lot of times they're kind of looking at the high level. Environmental, social, governance doesn't scale very well to the factory floor. So, we decided to look at, like, what are the OEMs doing to help out? We're finding that, traditionally they're focused on overall equipment effectiveness, OEE, cost, flexibility. So now they're getting pressured by their customers to build more energy efficiency into the design of the machine. So this ebook looks at the big picture and looks at some of the technologies that are available and even gives some examples of how it's being used.
And thank you, Stephanie. One of the big questions I wanted to ask right out of the gate, which mega trend stood out to you as the biggest driver of the shift towards energy efficiency in packaging machinery?
Which mega trend? So, well, I mean, there's big things happening. Obviously, manufacturing is a huge consumer of energy. I think there's some reports cited in our ebook that looks at, how much manufacturing itself and the ability to produce products is consuming energy. So that's the big mega trend, and that's what's driving these corporate initiatives to, be, better corporate citizens around sustainability. So that's the big picture. But then, as I said earlier, how do you scale that across the organization, not only to the factory floor, but a lot of these manufacturers have multiple factories around the world. There's different regulatory issues in different parts of the world. So, they have to be very in tune with what's going on. And so that's sort of what's driving this. And I think with everything that we're seeing, that the machine builder is becoming a really important player. They have a seat at the table now. And that's so important moving forward, because before it was just like, we need to do this. We need somebody who can give us some conveyors or some cartoners. Who's got the best deal? That's not the case anymore. Now the machine builder has a seat at the table and can say, we can do this for you. And energy efficiency, building and by design, a machine that is energy efficient is now a really important part of the playbook for sustainability.
Yeah, Stephanie, in your ebook on energy efficiency, which is available on packagingoem.com in the resource section, there's a senior engineer at Festo. He had a quote, and I say it directly. 10 years ago, everybody used what they used because it worked, but it wasn't always efficient. So can you provide some perspective on what you have seen the role of increasing energy efficiency in packaging machinery over the last decade or so, we can say that, and what technology has been implemented to advance?
Sure. Yeah. So, I think a lot of times you go with the cheapest option, right? So let's say compressed air. So you might have, a pneumatic pump or whatever, and that's the cheapest option. But over the long term, compressed air can be really, really costly. And there's leaks and there's all of these things that are happening. The problem is you can't see it. You can't see air, right? So how do you measure it? So what's been happening is that manufacturers are going to their OEMs and they're saying, you need to help us measure this. So the ebook cites some great examples. I'm going to give you one, and I'll give you a couple, but Pactian Power Sticker. So Pactian is a packaging OEM. They provide cartoners, case packers, conveyors, palletizers, wrappers. So now they've built a way to measure energy usage in existing equipment. And they have a portable energy monitoring system that plugs into the power feed of existing machines and outputs the kilowatt hours and the total cubic feet minute of air consumption. This info is converted into dollars as a sticker that just, gives you an actual dollar number saying that, running this machine is going to cost you X amount of dollars a year. So that's a way to measure it. And then, you've got to figure out, all right, well, where are the leakages coming from, right? So you mentioned the Festo engineer. They have a really good component that, again, goes to the power source and it monitors, what's being used. And we cite a great example in there of Unilever in Germany, the factory that makes the Magnum ice cream bars, which I absolutely love. But one line uses more than 20,000 ice creams on a stick per hour. That requires a lot of energy. So to reduce that air consumption of pneumatic components, Unilever used this energy module from Festo. And this collects the parameters like the flow, pressure, and consumption, and it connects it with the machine's controller. So this is a way that they can locate leaks. They can eliminate unnecessary consumption. If a machine is idle, it can automatically maybe turn off. So there's all of these things that are now intelligent things that are getting built into the control system that is fed by these components that are sitting on the machine.
Thank you, Stephanie. And you beat me to it. I was going to bring up the air consumption and compressed air and packaging, but I think you got it. And I wanted to add, sometimes you said it yourself. I'll rephrase it a little bit. Sometimes we forget air is here. It's around us all the time, but how much is it really costing us? So that's a good point. Sheri, do you have anything?
Yeah, talk a little bit about how data and analyzing data can really help factories and plants like save on their energy costs.
Well, the great news is that all of these components that are pulling information off of the machine and connecting it to the controller can then get fed into other systems, right? So now we have a way to analyze that. So the next step beyond this is predictive maintenance, right? What's failing? What's not working well? So that's where, I mean, this becomes really powerful. You start applying analytics, you start applying AI, and maybe it's not happening now, but we're setting the foundation for us to be really efficient on the packaging line or in the factory in general.
That's great. Yeah. Automation and AI, I know that that's something that we're building on. Can you kind of like look into the future a little, Stephanie, for us and like give us ways that you are seeing might, that where AI might be able to provide like more predictive maintenance, like give some sort of data for what machines will need maintenance or what machines need to be taken down. How can AI sort of help with the ways in which we analyze what your equipment, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think, if you think about a bigger trend like machine as a service for OEMs in particular, if they start putting this technology onto their machines and they're monitoring their machines, right? So they're pulling all this data. So historically, you have all this data and you need a data scientist to like sift through the weeds and figure out what's going on. That's a lot of work. And unfortunately, like we don't always have the time to do it. So AI is going to be that extra pair of eyes that we really need on the packaging line and in the factory. And the OEM is going to be responsible for taking that information and figuring out what to do with it. What's going on? Is there a motor that's about to go kaput, right? So downtime is expensive, right? We don't want downtime.
It
There
is.
you go there.
So AI is going to be instrumental in making sure we don't have downtime.
Excellent.
Other than this podcast.
We want this downtime, not that downtime. Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you. Okay, Stephanie, wrapping up our conversation, we talked a lot about energy efficiency in packaging machinery. In packaging as a whole, sustainability is a big pillar, big topic at the moment, but we tend to think of materials. Can you tell us how machines can really help a manufacturer company's eco footprint?
Yeah, so we do focus on materials. I mean, that seems to be the low-hanging fruit and the thing that consumers are most concerned about, right? So we talk a lot about flexible packaging. We talk about, mono materials. We talk about recyclability. All of those material things have to be fed through a machine, right? So here's the problem. We now have to test that on the machine. So the machine that's been working on the line with another material now might not be able to work with the new material that's being used because it's more sustainable and that's what the consumers want and that's what's going to help the manufacturer. So there has to be all of this focus on, all right, well, how does the machine get redesigned to work with these new sustainable materials? And then in addition to that, since like I said, packaging OEMs now have a seat at the table. So now it opens up the conversation to this larger issue. Okay, well, if we're going to redesign the machine to make sure it works with this sustainable material, why don't we keep going and redesign it so that we can figure out what the energy consumption is? So that's what's happening now. And if it's not happening now, it will be soon, or it should be. So, energy efficiency in packaging equipment is no longer an afterthought. And machine builders should be designing equipment with that in mind, and they should be talking to their manufacturing end users and saying, what do you need from us? And please let us help you engineer the next generation of machine that fits all of your sustainability goals.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. We really appreciate you joining us on the downtime. We really appreciate all the insights. Thank you so much. And everybody, go to the link at our LinkedIn page and make sure you download the ebook.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. And remember, you can find it at packagingoem.com under resources. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
What a great interview from Stephanie. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining us on the downtime. I especially like that she incorporated that you don't want downtime unless it's the downtime.
This is the only downtime you want. Yeah.
Or the only downtime you need. So thank you, Stephanie. And you can find the ebook at packagingoem.com/resources. Well, it's also available on the LinkedIn page. It's the pinned post at the top. Packaging OEM.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sarah. That's great. Yeah, so now let's chat a little bit about machines as a service, MaaS. So I didn't know that this existed, but I read a lot. I don't know if you know this about me, but I read the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, everything I can get my hands on pretty much. I'm a news person, I'm a newsie. Was reading the Wall Street Journal about tariffs. It's the topic that everyone's talking about. There's a big impact for manufacturers and for the engineering sector. We are likely just about to start seeing some of the pinch. That's what I understand from what I'm reading just today. That we're going to start seeing in the manufacturing sector a lot of the squeeze, economically from tariffs. So one of the surprising winners in the tariff uncertainty that we're living in has been machines as a service. And this is a sort of setup where you not only rent automation equipment, robots, conveyance, whatever it is that you need for your production line, you can also get the full service. You get all the data that you need. You can, get preventive and predictive maintenance. It's the whole package. So I had a great conversation with Saman Farid. He is the CEO of a company called Formic. They are a machine as a service provider, and he had some really interesting insights into what exactly they provide and how companies who are looking for sort of a short-term automation, fulfillment can use, rent equipment, get the full service that they need for their automation, and it's across a lot of different things from palletizers to conveyance to some AMRs. So why don't you have a listen to what Saman had to say? And yeah, it's a great interview, and hopefully you'll get as much out of it as I did. Hi, we're here today with Saman Farid with Formic. Thank you so much for joining us. Wanted to kind of talk about your business and renting automation equipment. Our readers, they automate manufacturing facilities. And I understand that the current tariff environment has kind of been good for renting automation equipment. Wanted to kind of get your experience. So why don't we start right from the beginning? Can you tell me a little bit about what Formic does?
Yeah, so we provide what we call full service automation. So it's not just rental, because what we found is that for a lot of small, medium-sized manufacturers in particular, renting equipment doesn't actually solve the biggest problem around deploying robots, which is I don't know what to buy, I don't know how to buy it, I don't know how to manage it, I don't know how to maintain it, and then there's a huge risk proposition, right? Like I spend a bunch of money on something that ends up not working, and then I'm in trouble. So we provide full service automation. What that means is, we take care of soup to nuts, everything from engineering to installation to deployment to maintenance, spare parts, programming and reprogramming. As I'm sure you know, and many of your readers know, like the SKU mix in any factory changes on a regular basis. Oftentimes more than a few times a year. And so when that happens, often the robot needs to be reconfigured. All that reconfiguring is included in our model, and we just help them fill empty headcount so that they can increase production.
Absolutely. What sort of sectors do you mostly serve?
So our three biggest sectors, the biggest one in general today is consumer packaged goods. So we make a lot of products or a lot of robots that serve CPG manufacturers that could be making everything from nachos to dog food to laundry detergent to windshield wiper fluid. So all of those, consumer products have a set of end-of-line stuff, so particularly focused around packaging and prep. Then secondarily, we also have deployments in metal fabrication that's making parts for automotive and aerospace and applications like that, where the robots are doing things like machine tending for a lathe or a mill, or a press brake or something like that. And then in the third category, we do some plastic injection molding robotics. So our robots help in plastic injection molding facilities to automate the loading and unloading of injection molds, so that people can get much more throughput and quality consistency out of their production processes.
Right. Let's kind of go back to tariffs, and I understand that there has been sort of I guess a boost in things like machine as a service or for renting automation equipment. Can you kind of tell me a little bit, has your company seen sort of an increase in interest in just kind of temporary automation solutions in the current environment because companies don't really want to make that investment right now?
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty that manufacturers face. So I would say even before this last round of tariffs, kind of starting in December, January timeframe, we started to see with the kind of possible tariffs coming towards Canada and Mexico, a lot of manufacturers all of a sudden started saying, well, how do I secure kind of the uncertainties in my business, right? Like my raw material costs may fluctuate, my ability to source from overseas suppliers may fluctuate, my ability to get parts made across the border, may fluctuate. So what can I do to have more control over my own fate? While knowing that environment is changing so much, it's also hard for me to put hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into machinery and equipment that I may not need 6 months from now or a year from now or 5 years from now. And so what we really focus a lot of our effort on is helping them fill that gap really quickly. So creating flexible solutions. Some of our customers choose to go as simple as a month kind of contract. Some of them have more predictability in their business, and they can sign up for a year or 3 years or 5 years. And depending on what makes sense for their business, either they're kind of optimizing for flexibility or they're optimizing for cost efficiency. But in either case, what we allow a lot of these factories to do is to suddenly scale up their throughput and the quality of their products without having to dig deep into their pockets to come up with lots of CapEx budget and put that all at risk.
Sure, absolutely. Can you kind of go over some specific equipment that you're really kind of seeing a lot of interest in? Is it things like palletizers? Is it things like conveyance? What sorts of equipment, are you really seeing an increase in?
Absolutely. Palletizers is a very common one. Case packing is another area where we're seeing a lot of robotic applications. Conveyor kind of always is needed to some degree. We also have autonomous mobile robots for different use cases, delivering product, moving product around the facility. We also have sanitation robots that are being used to help clean manufacturing facilities after the production is done. That's particularly necessary in food production processes where often 6 to 8 hours of a day is dedicated to sanitation. And that's something that robots can actually help drastically improve and increase the speed of. And then in the metal fabrication world, machine tending is a very common one. So machine tending for lathes and mills and presses. As you may know, large CNC machines or mills or lathes are often, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and factories often have them. And then what we see is actually the utilization of those machines is very low. Typically, the utilization is about 1,000 to 2,000 hours a year, which is about 1/8 to 1/4 of the available production hours in a year. You have about 8,600 possible production hours. And if you're using it for 1,000 or 2,000 hours, right, like you can imagine that asset is highly underutilized. So what happens is when they bring in some robots to tend that CNC mill or lathe or press, that machine can actually double or triple its usefulness. A person may still be there from time to time to kind of bring in a bin of new parts, but then that machine can run overnight. And we have a lot of our customers that do that. And so the team comes back in the morning and there's a whole batch of new completed parts. So in those kinds of use cases, really factories can up their throughput, up their production, and as a result, they can actually go and win more business. So what we've seen today, because of the latest round of tariffs, is a lot of large manufacturers, let's say kind of automotive companies or large heavy equipment companies, used to buy their parts from overseas. Mm-hmm. And now they're saying, well, how can I find a domestic producer to help me make XYZ component? And so they'll come to a lot of these small factories and say, could you bid this part? Here's the CAD drawing, can you make it? And unfortunately, the reality is a lot of these shops then have to respond and say, in theory, we can make it, but we're booked full. Right. Yeah. And that's a very common situation. It's really, really sad to see because it's business opportunity that they could have taken. It's the ability to reshore more manufacturing. It's the ability to speed up the cycle. But because these factories are not automated, they're not able to increase their overall throughput. So what we've seen is once they get a couple of robots, then they can start to say yes to some of those orders, and it helps them win more of that business.
Absolutely. What is one piece of advice that you would give to a company looking to automate quickly, so that they can take on those orders and that increased business?
Yeah, I think generally the first thing I would say is call Formic. We make it a lot easier. The second thing I would say is, I think robotics is one of those things that you can't kind of indiscriminately add. Like it's not like buying a forklift where you buy a forklift and a forklift is a forklift and you're kind of done. Robotics is one of those things that requires a lot of ongoing management and maintenance of that robot to keep it up and running. And so my recommendation would be either hire internally a strong engineering team and robot programming capabilities to do that. That's kind of option one. Option two is to find like a trusted source and be ready to have capital available. And what I would say is generally, if you're going to go with like a systems integrator, my expectation would be you should budget about 50% more than whatever they're quoting you. So if they say a project is $100,000, you should at least prepare $150,000 to $200,000 of capital available, because what's common in those situations is there's often what's called change orders in the process, right? You kind of try to deploy something and then you realize in the process there's things you didn't account for and you need to make modifications. And then over time, over the first year or two, there's actually a lot of costs you may need to incur to get that system up and running again. And then option three is really what I call kind of full service automation. And so there aren't a lot of other options on the market, so it does sound a little bit self-serving. But really, I think that the easiest way for people to get started with robotics is through full service automation.
Absolutely. You gotta love anything that's on the supply chain. We just celebrated Supply Chain Day, so we also put together a really great video on National Supply Chain Day, featuring a bunch of editors from WTWH. You'll want to go over to Packaging OEM on LinkedIn. Check out that video. I know I shared it on my LinkedIn. Wherever you follow us, go check out the video that we put together for National Supply Chain Day. Sarah did that. It was a great job. Well done, Sarah.
Thank you. It was a nice collaboration because it included all of our hands on our automation and controls team. So it was great collaborative effort. And I appreciate Sheri for participating in it. And I personally thought Sheri had the best part of the video.
Aw.
But it's my opinion, and I made the video, so I'll take it for what it's worth.
Thank you. That's very sweet. But I think it illustrates really how far-reaching the supply chain is, whether you're in raw materials or whether you are in distribution. It's so wide-reaching. We usually work on Sarah works on the packaging side of things and in material handling and things of that nature. I'm more on the manufacturing and engineering side of it, but it is so far-reaching from plant engineering to the controls, sensors, machine vision. It's all a part of the supply chain. So I think that it's just so cool to see how kind of far-reaching the supply chain is and how many parts are really a part of the whole. So.
Yeah, and how it impacts all of us differently as editors. Yeah, it was a great piece to be able to put together. Thank you again to Stephanie Neal. She gets another shout out. She green-lighted my idea and I appreciate it. She let me run with it. And she was a part of it as well. So thank you to her, thank you to Sheri, thank you to Gary, and thank you to Amara for all participating.
Absolutely. So, as you may know, it is May, and May is going to be a busy month for us. I, for one, am about to take off. In fact, by the time we go live, I will be back. Oh my gosh. Yeah, next Thursday I won't be back until late East Coast time because I'm going to be in Vegas. I'm going to be leaving midday in Vegas, but it's going to be late here by the time I get home. I'm going to be at Epicor Insights and excited for that show. It's all enterprise resource planning software and AI. And I just got some news that I am excited to be the first to publish. You will hear more about that at an upcoming time. That's been embargoed. It's super secret, but I'm excited that I'm going to be one of the first to share it with you. So stay tuned. Really excited to go to Epicor Insights in Las Vegas. The next show that I'm going to be at is MD&M East. That's in New York. That is coming up. I'm going to be there on May 20th. So if you're at MD&M East, don't forget to stop by, say hi. I will probably hand you a microphone and ask you to say some stuff about whatever it is you're exhibiting. So that's how this works. And then you'll end up on the downtime. So yeah, Sarah, where are you going to be?
So I mentioned this a few weeks ago, and to better understand me, you need to know where I'm from. I am a native of Ohio. I went to the Ohio State University, and I'll be entering enemy territory in about a week when I attend Automate in Detroit. It will be a great event. I'm going to capture tons of photos, tons of video, bring them back to our listeners on the downtime. So it'll be a good event. I'm really excited. I get to meet some WTWH colleagues that I haven't met yet in person. Sheri and I had the good fortune of going to 2 events in March together, and that's where our bond formed, truly. But yeah, I'll be in Detroit, Automate, May 12th to May 15th, and I've got the stabilizer ready. I don't have just one set of Bluetooth microphones. I've got 3. I'm ready
Wow.
to go.
Sounds great. So, Sarah, I notice in your background there that you have a
Yeah.
belt. Tell us about that.
Oh, this?
Tell us.
So Sheri, this belt behind me, this is actually a gift from my old news director.
Nice.
When I worked in local news, Columbus, WSYX, ABC6, WTTE, Fox 28, we aired SmackDown, which is a wrestling show that is a weekly program. When we got the show, WWE sent us this belt. I was a digital producer and I was offered a promotion to manage my team. I said, I'll do it, but I want the belt too. And my news director said, done deal. So shout out to Jamie Justice. I'll send this to her. Every so often I send her pictures of the belt. Makes me really happy. I like to see it. So I just recently added it to my office and I'm going to take it to Detroit. So stay
Nice.
tuned.
That sounds awesome. Well, I think that about wraps it up for us. This was such a fun time, Sarah, as always. And thank you all so much for spending your downtime with us. We can't wait to catch you in the next one.
Yep. So signing off from the downtime, Sarah Wynn, Sheri Kasperzak. Peace.
Peace out.